Hello! Welcome to day 2 of our Shameless Self-Care Challenge. Day 2. So yesterday was amazing. I was so humbled and really pleasantly surprised by the amount of engagement and the insights that were shared and just everything. So thank you for participating, and thank you for sharing so openly and authentically your findings from yesterday's practice and yesterday's reflection opportunities. I really heard a lot of clarity in this group around how you want to feel and what you need to make that happen, and the things that kind of can get in the way of making that happen. Hey, Christy. Hey, I don't want to mispronounce your name. Elias. And Lulu, welcome, sisters. So yes, lots of clarity around what gets in the way. And hey, Vicky, you made it. I love when we can connect live. We're always circling around each other. So yeah, lots of clarity and having that solid why. I started with yesterday very intentionally, because having that solid why, hey Claire, hey Christy, is important for anything that we're going to do in life. It creates that personal connection between us and what we want, rather than just having it kind of be this automatic or regurgitated thing, right? Where it's like, I'm doing this thing, I don't exactly know why I'm doing it, and I heard it was good for me, or my friend said it's really fun, or I'm going to go try this diet because my friend lost 10 pounds. Like, no, we need to connect to ourselves and our authentic why. And so starting with that foundation for yesterday was very important. And as I said, there was much clarity that came through, and a lot of very beautiful, tender, I don't want to say simple because that might belittle what came through, but just very, very tender and completely doable and achievable, and not, these unreasonable things and desires. So I hope that you all see that, because I think that we can have these, especially when dealing with shame, like we talked about yesterday, and we'll continue to thread in throughout the week. We can feel like our needs and desires are just so big and unreasonable and crazy, right? Like we don't deserve it, or it doesn't make sense. And so I wanted to start yesterday, like I said, with that solid foundation and having that really deeply personal connection that wasn't simply regurgitated, wasn't linear, wasn't, rooted in any type of logic or intellect. Because let's face it, we spend way too much time in that logical, linear space anyway, and not enough time in that feeling space, that non-linear, no more linear, spirally fluid space. And just one last little reminder for how this challenge works before I move into today. I love this topic on boundaries. Is it doesn't matter. There was a comment from someone yesterday about it had gotten really late and she wasn't going to be able to participate in that day. So this is up all week, and I will close on Friday and announce and draw the winner on Saturday, just to refresh. I am gifting one of my newest courses away to somebody, and to qualify, just participate all week with me. Just participate. You don't have to write an essay. You don't have to share something that you don't feel comfortable sharing. Just really have an open heart to the practices and to the things I share and to this process, and just participate through sharing something that comes up for you. Like I said, however much or however little is totally up to you. I would never ask you to do anything that is uncomfortable. However, there is magic and power and growth in the uncomfortability. And big shout out to the amazing Claire for sharing her a revolutionary experience in the bathtub with Yoni Mudra yesterday. I had tears streaming down my face this morning. All right, boundaries. When it comes to practicing shameless self-care, we need boundaries, right? And so those of you watching, I'm curious, when I say boundaries, what comes up for you? Just thinking of boundaries. What comes up? Maybe what do boundaries mean to you, or just what's the connotation when you hear the word boundary? Little word association game. I say boundary, you say pink flamingo. I don't know. That would be kind of cool. Like, why would boundaries make you think of pink flamingo? That's you. You do you, boo. I'm just here. Self-care. So boundaries make you think of self-care. Awesome. Thank you, Christy. I think for many of us, and how I used to think of boundaries, was this like external thing. So a boundary only existed between me and the outside world. That also speaks to a lot of my old beliefs and way of operating and programming, which put me a lot of times in victim mode. So it was like me against the world. So I often would think of boundaries, and many people do, as this thing that exists between me and the outside world only. Awesome. So boundaries equal stop sign. Cool. Boundaries equal exhausting. And Vicky says demands on your time. Yeah. So they mean, this is like a very wide variety of things. They mean a lot of different things to us. Exhausting, stop sign, demanding your time. So draining. That's kind of the energy that I'm getting from this little group. These boundaries are draining. They're demanding. Stop sign. These are exhausting. These are very charged things, right? A stop sign is universally recognized, bright red, very vivid, demanding your time. That's not like a nice, oh, it takes my time, or it's no, like demanding your time, and exhausting, not just a little tiring. Like, no, these are very charged responses. Yeah. So let's think about boundaries a little differently. My word for today is going to be fluid and spirally. Those are 2 words. I get 2 words of the day. I'm an indecisive young lady sometimes. Can't just pick one. So rather than boundaries being just existing between us and the outside world, or being these things that are very charged and we have to like cling to them and have to fight for our right to party, fight for our right to have this space protected. What if boundaries could be flexible and fluid and movable? When we start to think of them as just this rigid, fixed thing, we go right back into that linear way of being that we were squashing yesterday by identifying our why and connecting to the feeling component of what we wanted, and getting out of that logical linear way of being and just regurgitating what we hear, right? Like, oh, this might be a good thing. I heard it was good. So getting out of that way and coming more into a deeply connected, rooted in my own truth. My why is different than your why. My practices are different than your practices. And guess what? That's awesome. Because by connecting more to me, I'm going to be more of me. I'm going to have a richer experience of Devon, and then I get to show up fully, and it's all good. Because then I'm not drained, I'm not exhausted, and you get to do the same thing. So that same type of approach and that same type of energy we can apply to boundaries. So rather than them also being this fixed, rigid, exhausting thing, let's imagine that they are fluid and movable. And they get to be fluid and move. Who knew? They get to flow and move when they're fluid and movable. They get to move in response to what we need. So when we are connected to our needs and connected to our why and connected very clearly to what we are looking for, the boundaries also get to like, oh, I need this a little over here today, and then it can be a little over there, and they can be more flexible. The other thing is that they're not just external, they're internal. We have boundaries within ourselves as well. Yeah? How does that feel? Did you ever think about that? Having boundaries within yourself as well. So it's not just between you and others. It's also within yourself and all of the different, characters and parts of ourself that make up ourself. We've got the part of ourself that might really want the chocolate cake, and the other part of ourself that's like, dude, you have a chocolate allergy, like that's not a good idea. And so, all right, all these different parts, we've got boundaries within ourselves, and we have the opportunity to practice that loving self-discipline. And ultimately, they are here to not be draining and charging, right? Hold that very charged energy that we talked about a few minutes ago. But they're here to protect our energy, not drain our energy. They're here to protect it and contain it. Because without our energy being protected and contained, like we're nothing, right? And no one else is going to protect our energy for us. Hey, Amy. Hey, Sarah. Millie. No one else is going to protect our energy for us. That has to be an inside job, like 100%. Because people might have your best interest in mind, and at the end of the day, whether or not they're malicious, they don't know what's going on inside of you. So you need to know what's going on inside of you and contain and protect that energy. And then we must express these boundaries within ourselves and outside of ourselves. So when I say internal boundary, let's see what Claire says first. Boundaries externally are exhausting for me anyway, although thinking about it, it's more of a wall that I have. Yes. Thank you. I was going there next. We're so right here. Walls are rigid, right? Rigid and hard and fixed and immovable. We don't want walls to move. I don't want my house to fall down. That's not what I want. Boundaries can be fluid and movable, just like our needs from our self-care practices. The only way to know what we need and know what our why is and know where those boundaries exist is by being in that fluid relationship with ourselves and being okay with the fact that we're not the same every single day and every moment of every single day, that our needs do change and fluctuate. And that right there in one sentence is exactly why I'm so passionate about healing shame and healing feminine shame. Because the shame piece comes from resisting the parts of ourselves that are in flux, that are changing. We maybe set a standard or this precedent for ourselves. The bar was set at a certain level, and then when we don't meet it, or we can't, or we're different today than we were yesterday, it's like, oh shit, now I suck, or now I'm a failure, now I can't do this. And so being okay with the fluxes and the wanes and the waxes and all of it, being okay with how it changes and how the needs will change. They will. It's everything changes. The seasons change. Your internal and external landscapes change. How you were yesterday is not how you are today. You are constantly moving and flowing and changing and growing and evolving. And the danger lies in not being okay with that and trying to cling to a linear way of being where everything's just kind of like hunky-dory, do-do-do-do-do, cruising along on one even line. And that's not the way that it works. And so resisting that change, resisting that flow breeds dysfunction and dis-ease and makes us have a lot of resentment and animosity towards ourselves, which again makes it very difficult, like I talked about yesterday, to practice self-care in a loving capacity, because when we're holding on to this resentment and animosity towards ourselves, it's very hard to love ourselves, which makes it hard to then care for ourselves. So it's this like vicious circle that can get started. Sarah, it took me into my 40s to stay flexible while remaining respectful to my true self, aka my healthy boundaries. Yeah, and this came up yesterday with somebody else in a comment. I don't recall who. About being flexible. Sorry, my brain just totally went blank. It will come back to me. I'm sorry. Wow. I get so excited, and then so it's like going out of my what I had planned to say today, and then going into comments. Sometimes my brain's just like, make up your mind, Devon. Which track are we staying on? My brain works faster than my mouth. And Christy, fluid boundaries feels amazing, a new concept for me. Excellent. I'm glad that resonates, because they totally get to be fluid. You get to change and grow and flow with the boundaries, and the boundaries do too. So some examples, if some of you are like internal and external boundaries, what the hell is this? Internal boundary could be being radically honest with yourself versus kind of hiding things from yourself or bypassing certain things. It can be feeling your feelings fully rather than, again, bypassing them or being ashamed of them, or feeling like I shouldn't feel this way. Everything in my life is great. I should feel this way. I should, right? Keep that nice even line and not go into something like the emotional body, which is like the moon, right? Our emotional body is lunar. It's very waning and waxing and flowing. Another example of an internal boundary is choosing that which brings your desired feelings. So choosing the things that bring the desired feelings that you identified yesterday as needing, what your why is. It was like a few minutes ago, the parts that I named, like the part of you that might want the chocolate cake and the other part of you that is like, you have a chocolate allergy. Why would you do that? So looking at these different parts of ourselves and the different ways that we may put up the unhealthy boundaries by ignoring the true needs. Does that make sense? Is this landing? So the boundaries can be kind of serving as a bypassing agent. Like, I'm not going to look over at that stuff, at my ugly parts and the parts I don't want to be with, the parts that are painful. So that's an example of an unhealthy boundary. And then changing that, you can create a space within yourself through, perhaps this would be an example of your self-care practices, is creating that space within yourself to let all the parts be there and to feel what needs to be felt. And then you'll notice you have so much more energy, because it takes a lot of energy to put up those unhealthy boundaries and those blinders, right? Like, that takes so much energy. Imagine to have a physical experience of this kind of abstract concept of energy. Just imagine holding your hands up like this all day long. This is representing like the blinders that you may have if you're shutting out the other parts of yourself that you don't want to see. You might be able to do this for a while, but could you do this all day long? I don't think so. So think about how much energy it's taking internally to do that same thing. And then obviously external boundaries are rather obvious, right? It's expressing, it's sharing our feelings, it's asking for help, it's saying no, which, by the way, is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Got it? You don't need to justify, you don't need to explain. No is a complete sentence. So, if there is anything else about boundaries, I would love to hear it. So I'm going to let that just simmer for a moment in you and share what's coming up. And while you do that, I have today's practices for you. Yay! Today's assignment. So, like multiple choice tests, with A, B, C, D. I'm going to give you a new one to think about and hold on to when it comes to your task list or your anything for which you're responsible. Think of, is it C, D, or E? Collaborate, delegate, or eradicate. All right? I have so many clients that have their plates are just way too full. And I'm sure a lot of us can relate to that at one point or another. Maybe that's you right now. Your plate's just like super full. And there's this part of us rooted deeply in shame that tells us that we must work harder and do more, and we're not doing enough, and to say yes and please everybody. So we just take on all of this stuff. So now in this new way of being that you are creating this week, that is very authentic and rooted in your why. So you're letting that why from yesterday dictate everything from here on out, all right? In a very fluid manner. That's not rigid. That's very spirally. look at your to-do list and your responsibilities through the lens of, is this authentically what I want? Is this the best use of my time? Is this in alignment with how I want to feel and how I deserve to feel? Because self-care is not, and I'm hoping this will start to land more in the coming days. It's not this, it's a way of living. It's a way of speaking to yourself and treating yourself every day. It's not something that you do for an hour in the morning. It can be. Those greatly enhance your ability to then carry yourself throughout the day in the manner that you want to carry yourself. But self-care doesn't end when you roll up the yoga mat in the morning. Okay? So C, D, or E. Collaborate, delegate, eradicate. So to collaborate, you would ask for support and do it together. Team up with somebody. Delegate, this is not an effective use of my time. It might still be something that the family needs to get done or needs to get done in my business or whatever the case may be, and I'm gonna ask somebody else to do it. So delegating that task. And then eradicate, just get rid of that bitch completely if it does not serve you. If it's something that was taken on out of guilt or out of shame or just does not serve what you are up to and that's it, just doesn't serve what you're up to. Get rid of it. It's fine. You can do that. Eradicate. So collaborate, delegate, eradicate. And your assignment for today is to look at your to-do list, think of your responsibilities, and see if there is something or a few things that can be collaborated upon, delegated, or eradicated. Yeah? And then a little self-care practice for today, because you get your little assignment for reflection and you get a fun self-care practice. Dance. In the spirit of getting us out of that linear, habitual, rigid way of being, which there's nothing wrong with. It's not like one way is better than the other. We need all of it. However, I feel like the pendulum has swung way over to the rigidity, and now we need to bring it back. So dance. Dance, dance, dance. Get back into that innate spirally rhythm pulsation of life, of the universal flow, universal rhythm. So dance, 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 dance. All right? Is this serving me? Is a super helpful question to ask across all dimensions of life. Yes, Vicky, totally. I could not agree more. Is this serving me? And specifically, is it serving the why and how you are wanting to feel right now, what you're up to right now, to bring even more specificity to it? Is this serving what I'm up to right now? Beautiful. And Sarah, the struggle between the ego mind, conditioned from past experiences, can still keep me in fear, prejudging a situation, so I put up walls and healthy boundaries sometimes. I recognize it now and can reframe my thinking, feelings around whatever it is. Beautiful. Yeah. And we get more hip to the ways that our old conditioning will show up. And it does show up. And we work with it. We understand why it's there, where it came from, and we work with it. And we choose a different way from a empowered, conscious, awake place of being. Those linear habitual ways are kind of us sleepwalking, right? Those habitual ways are sleepwalking, and now we get to create. And when we look at what we created from a sleepwalking place, like, it ain't that bad, right? Imagine what we could create from a very empowered, conscious, awake place. Fucking awesome. Pardon my French. All right? So go get to it. Collaborate, delegate, eradicate, and dance and share with me. I love you. I will see you all tomorrow. Mwah.